Performance. Let's ask. We have Trump campaign manager Kellyanne Conway joining us now. Kellyanne, great to see you.
Thanks.
I know you've had a long night with little sleep,
Oh, who
but
hasn't?
Of course, everybody. What did you think were Mr. Trump's best and worst moment of last night?
Well, the best moments for Mr. Trump clearly were when he was taking on Hillary Clinton's record on trade and job creation, particularly in the first parts of the debate. I mean, he took her on full square on NAFTA and TPP. And also the fact that she's flip-flopped on TPP. She referred to it as the gold standard, and then she's against it, and she defies President Obama on it. So I think that's important because why? According to the CNN polling and other polls, Alisyn, jobs and the economy is the #1 issue. Another big issue is terrorism. And on that one, too, he put Secretary Clinton on the hook and said, look, you guys left a vacuum by the way you got out of Iraq, and that vacuum allowed ISIS, the birth and growth of ISIS, to fester in there, and now it's in 30 countries. I thought those are very strong moments.
Was there a moment that you wish he had done differently?
What I would love for him to focus on is that Barack Obama said it best in 2008. He said Hillary Clinton will say anything to get elected, and we saw that on full display last night. I was glad that he was polite and a gentleman to her, particularly at the end when he pulled the biggest punch of all.
Meaning that he did not play what he said he wanted to, and I guess bring up her husband's sexual past.
And he certainly was prepared to.
And he sounded ambivalent about that. He sounded as though he wanted to, so why didn't he go there?
It's a split-second spontaneous decision, Alisyn. He certainly could have, and it was probably on the minds of millions of voters at home, saying, wow, if she's going to challenge you on a comment you've made here or there about a woman, then goodness, why can't you challenge her on her husband's personal peccadillos? And he decided not to, and he explained to America why that was. He said, I came here and I was prepared to do some rough talking about that, quote unquote, but I see your husband here and your daughter, and I'm just not going to do. But what you're doing in hundreds of millions of dollars in negative advertising is not nice. I think that whole exchange will grow in importance over the next couple of days. Women will like that.
Let me play for you a moment that many pundits felt that he didn't answer adequately or well. And this was about when it came up and Lester Holt asked him about the birther conspiracy. So let's watch that moment.
We're talking about racial healing in this segment. What do you say to Americans?
Well, it was very, I say nothing. I say nothing because I was able to get him to produce it. He should have produced it a long time before. I say nothing.
So he says, I say nothing to the people who were offended, to the voters, to the viewers. Was that the right response?
I think if you played the portion of that before, when the question first arose, Alisyn, what he's saying is the three things that he said in that press conference 11 days ago, which is where this started. He got him to produce a birth certificate. He believes he was born in this country, and now he's going to move on to, and he said that very clearly in the clip that wasn't there. He said, I'm going to move on to creating jobs, move on to defeating ISIS, move on to talking about the disasters of Obamacare and education fixes, et cetera. And that's actually what Americans are saying. We expected that question last night, and he was prepared for that question. I just would have liked to have heard more about Benghazi or emails or the Clinton Foundation, since these are very clearly in the news. You know, one of our guests last night was Mark Geist, not Mark Cuban, Mark Geist, who is a Benghazi hero and survivor. And, you know, he was within several feet or yards of them. And I think it's a good reminder to Americans of what her record is on that particular issue.
Was there, since you were prepared for the birther question and you knew that would come up, was there any talk in the week leading up to this debate of getting Mr. Trump to apologize for that?
Well, I won't reveal internal debate preparation, but
would you have liked to have seen him apologize and truly put it to bed?
You know, apologies are so personal. What he has said in the past, very recent past, is that if he has offended anyone, that he regrets that, particularly if it has, quote, caused personal pain. And I think apologies should be received by people who feel that that regret is meant to be felt by people who feel like they have been caused personal pain. So he put that out there for those who feel like they have been aggrieved.
But I mean, not with the birther issue. We just heard Donna Brazil here, who was emotional talking about it because she said that, you know, that for her, her family, her grandparents didn't have it, weren't able to have a birth certificate, or her great-grandparents. And so it does offend them and hurt them in a different way. Has he considered apologizing to those people?
You're asking me questions about the way he feels. And as his campaign manager, I could tell you that I appreciated the fact that he took Hillary Clinton on super predators, a very hurtful term that she used in the 1990s and elsewise to describe African-American youth.
But she did apologize for that.
Well, she she apologized for using the word because it'll cost her votes, perhaps. But she also apologized for setting up an email server. But we don't know where the 33,000 emails are. We don't know why. I mean, I know that she's not fond of the Second Amendment, but she's very fond of the Fifth Amendment. She's got 5 people taking the Fifth just last week. This is a current burning issue. And I think last night people will look at these 2 candidates, Alisyn, and they'll say, was my mind changed at all about who is the change maker, who's the disruptor, who's somebody who's actually created jobs for a living versus somebody who just talks about it? I mean, her policies of trickle-down government are very potentially harmful to this country. The regulations, the higher taxes, the lack of energy independence and unleashing an energy infrastructure. There was none of that last night. I don't think anybody who turned in and said, will my job be safe or will I get a better paying one under Hillary Clinton should feel like they heard anything about it.
Speaking of burning issues, let's talk about climate change, because it's hard to know exactly where Mr. Trump stands on it. So let me play for you that exchange last night.
Take clean energy. Some country is going to be the clean energy superpower of the 21st century. Donald thinks that climate change is a hoax perpetrated by the Chinese. I think it's real.
I did not.
Science is real.
I do not say that.
And I think it's important that.
So does he think that climate change is a hoax or not a hoax, or it's real?
So I think that's based on a tweet.
It
and,
is.
Right. I just love that this whole man, whether he's giving a, yeah, I guess so answer to Howard Stern about invading Iraq as a private citizen on an entertaining radio show, or through a tweet, we're supposed to understand all of his policies. This woman proudly went and cast a vote for the Iraq war in the well of the Senate, and she's been an interventionist hawk her entire career.
On the issue of climate change, he's the one who sends out the tweets. I mean, he sends out what his thinking is on these policies.
The one
He's
from
the one using that. The concept of global warming was created by and for the Chinese in order to make the U.S. manufacturing non-competitive. I mean, these are his thoughts. Snowing in Texas and Louisiana, record-setting freezing temperatures throughout the country and beyond. Global warming is an expensive hoax. Does he believe that global warming is a hoax?
He believes that global warming is naturally occurring, is what he said.
What, naturally?
Naturally, that climate change is naturally occurring.
He believes in climate change.
And that there are shifts naturally occurring.
Oh, he doesn't believe it's man-made.
Correct.
So he believes that the idea that it's man-made is a hoax.
No, I didn't say that.
I mean, he said it. I'm actually repeating his tweet. So he believes that that part is a hoax.
He believes that climate change is naturally occurring. And we don't know what Hillary Clinton believes because nobody ever asks her.
Well, she talked about it last night. She does not believe it's a hoax.
Oh, she gave us the canned scripted responses, Alisyn, about somebody's going to be the clean energy superpower. I mean, I can't blame her. She obviously was over-prepared, and she wanted to make sure we heard every single scripted moment, including the snarky ones. That she had prepared to say. But I don't think people looking at that split screen last night see somebody who projected confidence and a break with the past. I mean, if you're part of the 70% of Americans who say, I want this country to head in a different direction, there's no way that you can say with a straight face, I want Hillary Clinton, who represents 25 years of the same.
What would you tell him to tweak for next time, for the next debate?
Well, I would tell him to take heed in what then Senator Barack Obama said in 2008, which is Hillary Clinton will say anything to get elected, and to realize.
Him say that more.
No,
often.
well, that's right, because and to realize, just have that in his head to realize that she'll say things that aren't particularly polite and aren't necessarily true, and to not let her off the hook with those. But I think the more she talks, and it's not necessarily good for her because she sounds very lawyerly, very lengthy, shifting, and everything. But
speaking of talking, was there anything wrong with his microphone last night?
I heard that from people who were in the audience. I was backstage, and it seemed fine on TV, but he did seem to feel like it was.
Yeah, he said that he thinks he had a faulty microphone, although on
it was
TV
skipping.
we could hear him.
But I guess when he was there, he said it, in other words, the way it was. That's what he said. I wasn't at the podium. But then I also heard from people in the audience, immediately their reaction was, when we were backstage, was there something wrong with your microphone? But
in the hall, they couldn't hear him as well, was the point. Is that what you're saying?
That's what a few people said, yeah.
Kellyanne, thanks so much for being here on your day. All right, coming up in our next hour, we will hear from the Clinton campaign manager, Robbie Mook, as well as Trump's running mate, Governor Mike Pence.
All right, now that you've gotten to hear from both sides, we're going to